Hey y'all, welcome back. It's time for another video. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to talk about what was my only GI Joe comic growing up. The GI Joe Yearbook #1, claiming to be everything you need to know about America's favorite heroes. Well, that's maybe a little generous, but this was the very first comic I ever had of GI Joe, and I bought it for one very important reason. It's not the amazing back cover, we'll get to that. It's what's at the end of the book. This is essentially a reprint of GI Joe #1. I was not old enough to have bought #1 of GI Joe. I would have been about 2 years old at the time. And so this was a great substitute. I think I found a used copy of this around, 1987 or 88 or so. And I was absolutely fascinated by this thing. This copy is not the original that I had, but you can see it's been well loved here. And I don't mind that too much. So you got, a lot of the main cast here. Many of these guys you'll see in the back of the book, and I don't want to spoil the surprise there for those of you who haven't read this. But we've got really some classic Joes from the Sunbow era actually here. And that's kind of my background. I never was a huge fan of the comic book. Like I said, this is the only one I had growing up. So this was a real treat for me to get this particular copy. So let's get started here. We're gonna just do a quick kind of run through of GI Joe #1. Some of you may not have read it, so let's take a look at it. So it's got a contents page here, and the name of the adventure is Operation Lady Doomsday, presenting the first ever GI Joe adventure, complete and uncut. And so this is what I was talking about. Now, most Joe fans have at least seen parts of GI Joe #1, and it's a great comic in its own right. But the real gem in here is what's after this. So we'll get to that. This is a great opening scene here. You can kind of see the classic GI Joe stylized American flag. This was used in a lot of the marketing as well. A different version of this that was more, had this kind of framed in the picture. And I think it's a fantastic opening. You've got all the makings of a classic GI Joe battle. You've got many characters on screen. You've got of course aircraft flying in here. I don't know, so it looked like FA-18s or something. I don't know. They look a little more modern than what the Joes actually fly. So that's interesting. Got some nice perspective work here in the foreground. And notice they've got the call outs for the classic Joe lineup here. Larry Hama, the scripter pencil, Herb Trimpe. If you're a fan of the G.I. Joe comic, you know all these names, so I'm not going to run this down. Okay. So, classic shot here. Amtrak wasn't that old by this point, and Amtrak was established in around 1971. It replaced all of the old railroads, so the old passenger railroads. All the old passenger railroads kind of came together into a conglomerate called Amtrak, and they were pushing pretty hard back in this time to get traction. They really only became their own company in about 1976. So this was early era Amtrak, and it was actually still kind of well supported at that point by funding. So this is a real nice callback to this period of time, and you can see that it's an Amtrak full of military people, which is a little unusual. But it's G.I. Joe, so you gotta love that twist on reality, right? You got your, men in black here, and then nice perspective here, nice framing of the panel there around Dr. Burkhart. And then we get a close-up, and Cobra attacks. So this is a classic scene. You've got some gliders here. Clearly these aren't either the Viper glider or claws. So this is all, they were all just, you know, pulling this out of their minds here. Here's the Baroness, finally her first appearance. I mean, technically it's on the panel back here, but you don't get to see that, you know, yes, Baroness, right? So you got some Cobra operatives and you've got the Baroness here, nice profile shot there. And this is the first scene where GI Joe gets separated from the Sunbow cartoon. So you got people dying already. And so a little closer to reality here in this frame. So I think this is an interesting first panel. Baroness not afraid to ruffle up the good doctor here, and she's got a pretty nasty looking weapon there to her head. These couple shots here aren't terribly remarkable, you know, dumping her out of the plane. What I think is interesting is rather than use a parachute for everything like the cartoon does, we've got this weather balloon. And I don't think we ever saw a balloon or of any kind in the Joe cartoons. That was an interesting choice. We've got this cool looking helicopter here. Now this is something you could definitely build your own, you know, custom helicopter out of some of the stuff they've got on Amazon right now. Some of the click and play helicopters would be a great donor for a custom like this. Or even some of the Joy-In or cheaper True Heroes things. You could probably kit bash something that looked really close to this pretty easily. So there's a project for you if you're looking for one. There's the Pentagon. And this is interesting because I'd never seen a picture of the Pentagon before when I read this. So I never knew that there was actually a Pentagon-shaped building. So this is, and all of GI Joe for me was really, I think, a vocabulary building exercise. I learned so many words from the file cards that were new to me at the time. So, so they're showing the weather balloon and the helicopter in this frame. It's nice shot of the GI Joe headquarters. Kind of keeps that big base Marvel feel that they had at the time. You got all the panels with the, you know, the lines and everything, all trying to look high tech. You've got this big console here, and they're watching the action close by. And you've got General Flag, and he's got his big monitor. It's just classic GI Joe. And so here, they left a message on a mirror, which, who knows? I mean, who's got a camera in the bathroom pointed at the mirror, right? That's a little weird. But yeah, I think, you know, that's GI Joe for you. They've got a camera everywhere that it needs to be, right? So there's a nice shot of this guy here tipping his hat. And let's see what else we have. All right. Here's the big Cobra rally. And somehow these guys also have a camera there as well. So maybe this is supposed to be a photograph. I don't know. This is where it gets a little scary in the comic, as there's clear call outs to darker times in real life history. And here's where GI Joe gets mentioned, right? So here's an, you know, you finally seeing GI Joe headquarters. Looks a bit like the Sunbow version. Nice kind of outlining of all the main characters, the original 13. And there's Shooter there for all you Shooter fans. There's Hawk, blonde Hawk. Yeah, you know, controversial blonde Hawk, blonde versus brown, right? What's the Transformers phrase? monkey not truck, or truck not monkey. So this is, we first get to see Clutch, and he's in a, you can only see part of him in his uniform. Here's the first shot of the Vamp and the classic motor pool. And we've got them pulling in. And I wonder if they use part of this here, this panel they've got underneath the Vamp, to kind of build out the 83 headquarters, because that looks a lot like that little jack platform on the 83 HQ. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, nice shot of the Joe's training. Got a rifle range here. We've got some martial arts going on. We've got the Submariner in a bubble. Oh wait, that's probably one of the GI Joes. No wings, right? And here's a guy that's just on the training floor where something haphazard could happen, and he's just got a cloth out rebuilding a weapon. But that's GI Joe. Grace under pressure, right? So here's GI Joe finally gets called in to deal with the problem. Nice, you know, alarm. We're on the air, right? I love this shot of Scarlet with the little burst behind her, kind of calling out to the action figures, and she's looking at the little, what is that? This is like a little keep that Cobra's hanging out in on Cobra Island. It's so cute. All right, so we've got Cobra Commander's first appearance on, it's on a television screen. So we'd come to love this guy and his appearances, you know, as he threatens to conquer the world. And there's the comic pack figure, what's got the little white Cobra emblem on the head. I think they made that a little too big on the action figure. There's the Baroness in her classic comic uniform. And there we see Dr. Burkhart. Got the nice shot here of Duke's face, and well illustrated there. And we finally see what Cobra Island looks like. This shot, we'll get to this guy in a moment. Yeah, so this shot, I swear, I just see this in my brain. This is what reminds me of GI Joe #1, like this shot right here of Cobra Commander and Baroness, and they've got, you know, Dr. Burkhart. Of course, she's, you know, cuffed to the chair, as all good villains do. They cuff everyone to some sort of surface. I always thought this picture of Baroness was a little bit weird, and now she's in her something resembling her original cartoon appearance here, rather than the plain black outfit. I actually never noticed that before, that she switched uniforms. Because if you go back one page, there she is in her I would assume her classic 84 look. And you've got this new one here, but much as I don't like the facial expression, it really highlights the change in uniform, so that's excellent. Yeah, this guy maybe needs to, again, call outs to darker times in human history, right? I can't say I'm sad to see them move away from some of this kind of imagery. I understand that the punch that it made at the time, but I like to look fondly back on stuff like this, and yeah, let's concentrate on the good stuff, right? So here's Cobra Commander, classic Cobra Commander expression. He's there. He's got the emblem behind him. Just wonderful imagery here. And this is the other shot that I love, is the one where he's just telling her who's boss, right? He's Cobra Commander. He's not going to take flack from any prisoner. So this is another great shot here. I love this one. I'm a big Cobra fan, if you haven't noticed, but this one with the perspective with the rifles and everything, it just makes such a great piece of imagery. We've got GI Joe, classic Stalker. That looks like Stalker, and he's attacking with the jetpack there. Here comes GI Joe in a landing craft, and then we've got Stalker there with the jetpack. I do love this imagery. I almost think that Stalker should have been the one to come with the jetpack and not Duke, but they were referencing the movie. I get it. So here we've got Stalker landing, and then they show a map of Cobra Island. And now Cobra's had their heads knocked around a bit. You can see Cobra Commander's not happy about it. So he's pretty confident that Cobra's going to win the day with all those troops. And they're all lined up like some collectors I know like to do with their army builders. Wonder where they got that from. All right, now I love this scene because this is where Zap really shines. Like, I thought this was the coolest thing as a kid, because all I had was sci-fi, and I never thought of using his. I always liked it when they used their weapons as a tool, and Flash is just so cool in this scene. So I love going back and reading this. It's just it's a fantastic little side story or moment in the comic, how they're breaking in by using his laser rifle to cut the tubing around the communication cable. So here's another interesting window shot. I love pieces like this, panels like this, where it shows like a dark outside and this lit up inside, and there's Snake Eyes, and he's looking in. There's Scarlet. More original vehicles that we'll never see. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Super 7 made Quinn, so I guess it's possible we'll see some of these vehicles as, especially little small guys like this. We could get a little propeller Cobra plane. That would be pretty cool. I'd buy one. Then another, little montage of names here. We've got all of their files. And then we've got this crazy looking landing craft. And here we've got the, almost anime like, their GI Joe is going to land on Cobra Island, and they're going to do it in style. And here we're getting in the thick of it. Here's the Badooms and the Bawam and the Badam and the Punch. There's another. I'm guessing this is Grunt. Yeah, that's Grunt. Yeah, classic Grunt. I think he's so much more iconic in the drawings. The figure was such a disappointment. Grunt and Zap, man, they could have done so much more with those, like in the 1983 swivel arm. It's just a shame that they never left the replacement heads that they had created on the new figures, but must have had their reasons for it. We've got some Cobra troops, some dead ones. Not going to see that in Sumbo. They destroyed the dummy planes. Oh, that's a dummy. Okay. That makes a little more sense that they're showing dead guys. So here we go. Here's Snake Eyes in his first appearance actually being a commando. And Scarlet. I love putting the helmet on Scarlet. I think I probably broke a couple of helmets trying to recreate this, but I always liked the commando Snake Eyes better than the ninja. I thought the ninja was overused. Here's the fishing village. It's interesting that Cobra Island has a fishing village, but now that I think about it, they got to get their food from somewhere, so they probably left the natives intact to kind of make them do their non-military fishing and foraging, right? So this is an interesting shot. This got a whole lot more boring once it landed. But it's not about the landing craft, it's about the vehicles, right? We've got the Mobat, we've got the Ram, and the Vamp here, all ready for action. We're gonna charge down this fence and crash into it, and oh man, this is like the back of a notebook in grade school, right? There's rock and roll on the motorcycle on the Ram, and, and they're driving around. Looks like the Hal. Yeah, I'd hate to be towing a trailer in this environment. I don't think that would go very well for anybody driving that Vamp. But it's GI Joe. Physics don't matter. Of course, we got grenades. Gotta love that. It's Cobra Commander finally realizing that things aren't going his way. And Baroness has had enough here, and oh boy, there's more of that imagery. So here's the fishing village, and yep, now we get dark, right? Fortunately, all you see is like legs and arms. Oh, there's an actual dead body right there. There's an arm hanging out. It's pretty dark. And you've got this one, and this scene right here, this reminds me of the Commodore 64 game so much. We've got two tanks here, and in the Commodore 64 game, you get to play as one of 4 vehicles on some of the stages, and you can choose to be the Dragonfly, the Sky Striker, or the Mobat. And the Mobat works kind of like the old Atari combat game, where you're kind of driving around and you're trying to just line up with the tanks. And I wonder if they got, some of the influence for that level from here, because this is a fantastic view of the tanks. It's awesome. This is an interesting one. You got rock and roll rolling in on the motorcycle, gunning down Cobras. They blow up the suspiciously familiar convertible here. And rescue the Baroness, it looks like. Oh, doesn't Stalker have egg on his face now? Cobra Commander thought of everything. There's that cool Cobra helicopter again. This is long before the Mamba or the Fang, or the Fang 2. Well, the Fang was coming soon at this point, but I just thought it was great in these early comics where Cobra was actually just using like normal looking hardware instead of some of their crazier things that are, they're endearing in their own right, but the realism here is appreciated. I guess that Hal survived that whole escapade they had through the barbed wire area. I would have thought that would have turned the vehicle over for sure. But then again, GI Joe, right? Oh, I love this shot here of Cobra Commander when he first puts his helmet on. It's just so great. I mean, this is classic Cobra Commander, putting everybody in front of him to take the bullets, right? Or the lasers or the punches. And he thinks he's got them. Here's another classic scene I remember always. The one time when Scarlet uses her ninja stars to make Cobra Commander drop his gun. Fantastic. And then the GI Joes escape in the Cobra helicopter. As the Cobra base explodes. What do we find out? Cobra Commander and Baroness escape in one of those little prop airplanes. So cute. Right, so that was GI Joe #1. This was kind of a trek back for me. It's probably not my favorite issue in the early comics of GI Joe. that honor probably goes to the Cobra Island plot, or some of the later ones where Quinn was involved. Those are my favorites, and they're gonna have some references to this. So at the time, I didn't know anything about how the GI Joe comic turned out, and this was my synopsis of everything that was going on. So this is, I had to move on from issue 1, but it was good to know what was going on. These little summaries of each kind of plot line that happened after the first comic. We've got what is that? That looks like Snow Job and Snake Eyes and maybe Doc. I see the little red cross there on his arms. That must be Doc. And they've got something that looks suspiciously like the Cobra gliders, the Viper gliders. So that would be them. That would be 1983. Then we've got our first taste of Springfield, and looks like Extensive Enterprises. Maybe not. No, it just looks like something that should be from Extensive Enterprises. But, and then, love it or hate it, the brainwave scanner where Snake Eyes is dreaming about apples. I don't know. I always thought this was very strange. Like this is like H.R. Geiger stuff. You've got this helmet and then this shadow, and like the teeth are somehow showing through the mask. So I was never sure if like they tore his mask open to stick some crazy tubes in his mouth or something, and like, or they were just trying to sort of censor this. But this one isn't as weird to me as this one is, where they're just kind of like blacking out his face so that you can't see it. I think that's what the artists were trying to do. But it's because Snake Eyes has a black mask, it has some weird other ideas that you could apply to this image. Very, very memorable image, this guy right here. There's Dr. Venom, favorite. I think he'd look cool in an O-ring figure. And there's Snake Eyes punching Dr. Venom. We've got Gung Ho bonking people's heads. This is very consistent with Sunbow. Whack. We've got Quinn. More things that couldn't get away with now. Yeah, the cruelty of Cobra is obvious in these early comics. It's kind of a little more true to life. There's Stalker and some undercover garb. Talking about Springfield, Arbco Furniture Company. You've got GI Joe just driving into the Cobra Village in an obvious GI Joe vehicle. The APC, that's a nice shot of the APC. You get to see how the side is supposed to roll up like that. That's pretty cool. Wouldn't that be cool if it had like a removable panel there on the actual vehicle? I think that'd be awesome. Make this little thing here removable too. That'd be great. So you can see he's supposed to show how the APC is so tough. Here's another vehicle that would be easy to customize and build. They got a lot of these, what are they called? C30 or something like that. There's a bunch of these type of things on Amazon if you'd like to build one. They usually go on sale. I've seen them as cheap as $25. And you just look for them. They're usually not made by really reliable action figure companies, usually like Joy-In, or you'll see a whole bunch of the different variants of this, but they've all got light and sound. There's several videos. I think Action Robot Punch did one of rebuilding this as like either a GI Joe or a Cobra vehicle, but this is like the classic Wild Bill airplane. And then this is an awesome issue. I've finally read this whole thing like way later, but this is this classic scene. The bear wishes the weasel was dead. I think I've heard this phrase. I think everybody loves this little bubble here. It's fantastic. Quinn would have been amazing in Sunbow. I really wish they'd used him there, but I guess the comics have to have their exclusive characters too. Would you rather have Quinn or Honda Lou? Give us our Honda Lou, right? Oh, another classic panel. Another classic panel. So it just highlights the ability of the artist here to really give flavor to the imagery. You've got like the side profiles. This is what made me want to make my first custom Scarface. It's the only custom Joe I've ever made is this Scarface. Maybe I'll get him at the end of the video. We've got the Baroness. We've got Dr. Venom. And he's interesting. His facial features are reminiscent of some other, again, some darker things. And we've got the classic scene where Major Blood points the hiss tank, or points the cannons at the van, and or the hiss tank, and the Baroness decides that she's going to sacrifice herself for Destro. It's interesting. By this time, she's still wearing the classic blue uniform, and not the 1984 version. I wonder if they ever considered her for this version of the uniform for that first figure. Be interested to know that. It's where Baroness was in the same center later that Snake Eyes would be in to get reconstructive surgery. And some classic snake armor, the way that I think it was intended to be used, and not in the Sunbow cartoon where they were straight robots. Though I think the blueprints do say it can be either one. So the Super 7 version has both. There's a great shot of Cobra Commander like covering his mouth even though he's got a mask on. It's fantastic. There's another issue where he has this little opening in his mask and he's drinking coffee through a straw. It's awesome. Only in GI Joe is the measure of a man, determined by how many masks he's wearing on top of each other, right? That's how you know how villainous they are. And there he shoots Quinn, and Quinn, his last act is to drop a grenade. And there goes Dr. Venom. And there's Quinn. And they're sadly putting him off to a Viking funeral type of thing there. On a little kayak or something. Looks like a kayak. There's burying General Flag. And there's our first shot of the Dreadnoks. And isn't this a fantastic map of the pit? Now, anybody that wants to build a diorama of the pit, this is what you use. So it shows you where all the elevators are, the second level. You could come up with so many different things from this. I would stare at this thing for hours as a kid, even though it wasn't Cobra. I just thought the map was super cool. There's a awesome old ad. Of course, Duke is on here now because this is actually from 1985 or so, maybe 84. And now we get to the best part. This is the best part of the comic. So we get these straight on profiles, and the file cards were great, but man, these big pieces of art. And these are essentially, I'm not going to go through each, file card piece, but you've got these big photos, Snake Eyes, Cutter. You've got Cobra Commander, Copperhead. Just fantastic, like full graphic images of the characters that I don't think at the time there really wasn't any other way to get like a print copy of these things. So super cool. Some of the art on the file cards could be really really kind of blurry and hard to see what was going on, but these are super clear. There's Duke Recondo, who's got like a white mustache for some reason. I don't know. Looks like the bleed on the comics a little bit. Looks like they maybe didn't print something correctly there. There's Firefly. This classic image. Everybody loves that picture of Firefly. There's Storm Shadow. Just, I think most of my favorites in here. There's Thunder, Blowtorch. Looking a lot scarier in that photo than he does in Sunbow, I'll tell you that. And we've got Deep Six in an actual usable form. I so hope this gets unlocked by the Navy Kickstarter, because we need a Deep Six that's not 5 points of articulation or brightly colored. No, the 1989 version's not so bad, but it'd be nice to have one that you can, you know, stick on the whale and just be a Navy guy. Got classic Roadblock, Ripcord with his mask on, Baroness in her classic 84 uniform, Major Blood. Look at that. They just capture every important detail of the characters without going too far overboard. Wild Weasel is a very detailed version of him. Scrap Iron, and this is notice this helmet's a bit more round. You guys like the domed helmet or the round helmet more? I always like this round kind of sci-fi looking helmet. They use the same thing in the Sunbow episodes as well. I always thought it was interesting that they used Scrap Iron so late in the show. Like he was right there at the end when that's when he actually shined, was when he was at the end, betraying Cobra Commander right before the movie. There's Mutt, Spirit. He's got a kind of derpy expression on his face. I love Spirit. He's awesome, but that's kind of goofy. We got Destro. We got Zartan looking very sinister. And there's Steeler with his Mobat. That's fantastic. Look at that. And then we've got the GI Joe Team Wants You. It's funny, this comic has no real candy ads. I had forgotten. I guess that was all in the Transformers comics. This is the for the GI Joe fan club, and they called it the Mobile Strike Force in this year, in 1984. So this is 1984. So here's little, very blurry images of the Sunbow cartoons. Looks like Revenge of Cobra. We've got looks like an ad for the comic. Yeah, debut issue of GI Joe. Such fantastic animation in the cartoon, in the commercials for the comics and toys. Later, that's all the animation we would get for the current product, 1987 and 88. Even in 1989, right before Dragonfire, they were still doing bespoke animation for the toys and the comics. We've got this awesome car. Wouldn't you guys like to have this? I'd love to have that car. It's a little Cobra vehicle. I would have killed for that as a kid. Here we've got the Viper pilot, looking different from his comrades. It's like he's wearing a blue onesie. I'm sure it's just an animation coloring mistake. And then you've got the tube worms, the giant tube worms. And the classic line, "Come to Pedo, baby." Man, different times back then. I forget his name. That's one we're sure we're going to see from Super 7 there, this guy. I'll be in line to get that. I'll tell you what. We've got this weird transport. I like that they called out a custom vehicle from Sunbow. That's fantastic. So all the stuff we're hoping to see from Super 7 is these crazy contraptions. There's irradiated snake eyes. Hey, we already got that. We already got the canister. Where's this cool spider thing? And there's the polar battle bear with looks like Doc and Snow Job, and a memo from General Hawk. So that, except for the last back page, was the GI Joe Yearbook. What a closure this is. Fantastic. I wish I had a poster of this. But I hope you guys enjoyed the run through of my favorite GI Joe comic book. Thanks for watching. Come back soon.